All right, EntreArchitect community, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, which means it's time for the EntreArchitect Context and Clarity conversation for Thursday, September 8th, 2022. Welcome. Glad you're here. As you get here, say hi. Let us know that you're here and let us know where you're joining this conversation from. Where's here to you? If we've never met before, my name is Jeff. I'm in Indianapolis. I come here every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern for one reason, so that we can find clarity around the things that matter most to you, the architect. It doesn't matter if you're the employee of a firm or you own your own firm. Maybe you circle a date on the calendar. You said 2022 is my year and you're on the runway to starting your own thing. Or maybe you have owned your own firm for a year or 7 years or 19 years and you're starting to rethink or reimagine what that firm could or maybe even should be. All of the topics that we cover, one topic every day, they all fall under the broad umbrella, really broad umbrella of the business of architecture. And they're all the need to know topics for the success of small firm architects just like you. So thanks for joining us today. As usual, for these Context and Clarity live conversations, I am joined by my co-host, Katharine MacPhail. Hi, Katharine.
Hi, Jeff.
How's
How are
everything
you?
in a different part of Massachusetts today?
It's great. It's a beautiful day, and I'm going to mark that on my calendar also. As one day, I cannot complain about the weather.
It's
It's a beautiful,
let's see.
sunny,
In the
cool day.
Midwest, we get 6 of those a year, and we still we find something else to complain about those 6 days. So
Well, I am hoping I can keep that up for a year to see how many days I don't complain, because I suspect there are very few. But
it's good to have goals.
yeah,
Well,
September
thanks.
8th, nice day.
There you go. Circle it on the calendar. Thanks for joining me today, and to everybody else out there in the audience. Glad that you're here as well. I see Scott Thrift is joining us from San Francisco. He says electricity is good today. That's a good thing, especially for Californians over there. Scott's on LinkedIn today. Hi, Scott. You're the first in the room, first on the screen, which means you're the winner of today's John Kinney Memorial Crocheted Bathtub Award.
Hmm.
Congratulations. Thanks for being here today. Yoko's here, she says, from Alexandria, Virginia, over on Facebook. Emma, she's talking architecture over on YouTube from New Jersey. Hi, Emma. Chad Ranke, from the ATL. Chad and Cliff, I think, are homies of some sort. Great to have both of you here. And Barry Reed, good evening to you, sir, from Scotland. What's on tap tonight? How is it Thursday already? I don't know. I've looked at the calendar 16 times already today, and I still don't know what day it is. Welcome back, Barry from Scotland. Glad you're here today. Mark R. LePage from Waxhaw, North Carolina, and YouTube. Glad you're here. And Christian, he's here too, from Ithaca, New York. Chad says the weather isn't too bad. Could be better. Minnesota, double negative. That's very Midwestern, northern Midwest, but it sounds very, very much like us here. Us complainers here in the Midwest. Maybe everybody complains about the weather. I don't know.
I think so. Except, yeah, well, yeah.
The people in San Diego, where are San Diego peeps?
Well,
Do they
they still
complain about the
complain.
weather?
Yeah, they still complain, but I think they have less days to complain about. So I think
Okay.
that's a difference.
All right. Well, oh, there's Jessica. I skipped Jessica. Sorry, Jessica. Hello from cloudy, humid Los Angeles.
Yeah, see,
Maybe that
that's what I
means
mean.
things are cooling down and you might have some rain at some point. That would be helpful. Glad you're joining us from Los Angeles today, Jessica, and everybody else that's out there as the internet powers that be push this signal out, our simulcast signal out all across all the platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Say hi when you get here. Let us know that you're here. It's great to have you here. We have another great guest as usual for Context and Clarity Live. I've been looking forward to this. This guest, I think this conversation is really going to speak to me. Many of you know about the class, one of the classes that I teach, and I would love I would love for this idea to come out of my class, but we'll get into that here momentarily. Jessica says hasn't rained for 20. It rained for 20 seconds this morning. That's why it's so humid, I guess. All right. With that, Again, hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy Context and Clarity Live. Our guest today, oh, there we go. I forgot. Thank you for the reminder.
Okay.
If you're on Facebook right now and you're commenting away and you're saying, hey, why aren't my comments showing up on the screen like Jessica's are or like Christian's are? It's because you are in a private group on Facebook. And Facebook has some rules, privacy policies that we have to adhere to. They won't let your name, your likeness, or your comments out of that group unless you give Facebook permission to talk to Restream, which is this platform that we use here. So there is a URL at the bottom left of your corner right now, chat.restream.io/FB, as in Facebook. If you type that into your browser bar, preferably not the tab that you're in right now, maybe open a different tab. But you type that into your browser bar, and a couple of clicks later, you can give Facebook permission to let your comments be seen. Let yourself be heard here in this conversation today. So chat.restream.io/FB, like Facebook, is the place to solve all of your problems. All the problems of the world, just in that one URL.
Nice.
Yeah. If it could only be that easy. And by the way, we understand that we are competing with some news today. So those of you that aren't aware yet, the Queen has passed away today at 96 years old. So we're going to soldier on at this point, and maybe we'll have a special episode featuring Prince and future King Charles as a Context and Clarity live guest. But we haven't heard back from his booking agent yet, so don't hold your breath there. All right, with that,
You did ask
today's guest, we will. Hey, we heard that you just became king.
Oh.
We are the king makers. How would you like to be on Context and Clarity Live, Charles?
No, he's never going to come on.
That's exactly how the email is going to read.
Okay.
All right, we'll see what happens. All right, our guest today is a builder, a creator, a founder, and a visionary. He's educated as an architect, and he's disrupting the traditional process with generative design and co-creation tools. He's a co-founder and the CEO of TestFit. Clifton Harness, welcome to Context and Clarity Live.
Hi, thanks for having me, Jeff, Katharine.
It's great to have you here. It's a beautiful view of Dallas there behind you, and we love the swag.
Thank you.
Before we went live, we decided that the mark of finally making it is having your own merch. So TestFit has definitely made it at this point.
We have enough stability to order hats, which is good.
Yeah. It depends how many you ordered, maybe, but
that's true. Are those the KPIs that you use? Are those the ones that you're paying attention to?
I think during the pandemic, we wanted to get some swag, and a lot of the kind of swag factories, if you will, like we're operating at full force. We had this idea that we wanted to get stress balls because, doing a lot of work for free for people is stressful, which TestFit does, a lot of the kind of, or tries to automate, part of the planning process that many architects do for free. Anyway, so we got this one stress ball prototype manufactured, and it cost $300, like $320.
Wow.
And it's too bad I don't have it with me. It's like a potato that has our TestFit logo on it. It's a potato. It's stress potato. And we handed them out like they're like a talking piece at conferences. Like the software wasn't enough for you. Like, come for the software, leave with your stress potato in your hand.
With a potato.
Nice.
I love that. That's an expensive potato, though. That's amazing.
Well, yeah, the first one was expensive. The lot of 400 that we got was way cheaper after, but the prototype, very expensive.
And they're probably collectibles now, so.
That's funny. Jessica says, you know what reduces my stress? Dropping $300 on a squishy potato.
Well, it heightened my stress, but
Yeah.
I imagine it did. Yeah, I'm not sure if that was adding stress or relieving stress, but at least now you've got 400 potatoes.
I think we gave them away. Like, we got to order more. We're out of them.
Well, the more you order, the cheaper they get. So
Hopefully.
just look at it that way. Yeah. Yeah. We were also talking before we went live about the fact that your team is growing. It's not just you and your co-founder anymore. It's growing, and you mentioned that that you're finally doing some strategic planning, and that really resonated with me because, one of the things that I wondered is, as someone like yourself that has a B Arc from the University of Texas Austin, right? Educated as an architect. There you go horns. The educated as an architect, some real world experience, but you've gone from architecture into tech, or tech for architecture. Why make that leap? Or was it intentional, or was it just an evolution? But how do you and do you think that's a good thing, to jump from architecture to tech?
Yeah. Look, I don't think that my path is necessarily one that a young architect should envy or follow or look up to. It's fraught with failure. I'm very bad from a learning perspective. Like, in college, like, I'm fine getting through college and stuff, but when you take the Strengths Finders test, you figure out what you're really good at, and rapid learning kind of wasn't what I was good at. I was really good at learning something and then thinking creatively with that one piece of information, what I could do with it. And that's kind of my superpower was that, right? Was once I learned it, I could do something with it. But I had to learn through failure a lot. And so the last 5 years, TestFit, I've had well over 2,000 customer calls. And then while I was running sales, I had about an 8% close rate. So, that means that 8 times out of 100, I got a customer, but I had to be told no, or was just like ignored by 92 out of 100 people. And that's my target market. Like, I still am here. Like, I don't have, like, I'm not angry about that, right? Because, like, it's an impossible product to sell to people at the very beginning, because it, like, didn't really do much, and you kind of sell people on the vision and they get into it. But jumping into tech from architecture wasn't, for me, like, for me, it was a logical step because of where I came from. And where I come from is a real estate development family. Like, my dad's an apartment developer, has been my whole life. My grandfather was on the board of NAHB. He wrote, in the real estate section of the Washington Post for some of his career after he came back from the Sicily campaign. I mean, it's like real estate's in the blood, right? Specifically apartment real estate. So I didn't really like sort of wanting to do exactly kind of what my dad was doing, because I think as a man or a son, you kind of want to forge your own path, right? So I ended up getting into high density multifamily. Dad is a garden, lower density kind of guy. And out of school, I got just the best firm that you could work for what I wanted to do in Texas was Streetlights Residential. And it's a development firm that does design intimately. Like, you might call it a design firm first that does development. And that was incredibly important to me. It was new urbanism, and then they did construction too. So there's 3 kind of legs to the stool in my mind in terms of how you get a building built, and it's building design done by the architect, building construction done by the GC, and deal financing and deal execution done by the developer. And Streetlights was doing all of it, and I consumed, like, I worked 80 hours a week because I wanted to, right out of school. And like, if you want to point to, I don't know, what it takes to be expert, like, every day after other people left, I got into the file system and I poured through CD sets, I poured through pro formas, I poured through construction pricings. I tried to really understand intimately kind of how it was that the buildings that we were designing either got killed by the finance committee or how they were successful. And through that exploration, I mean, this exploration started for me in college. I did a thesis project that was like, I want to drive pro forma from the SketchUp model. Like, I wanted to model in SketchUp amassing, and I wanted the sort of residual land value to update in Excel as I'm doing it. And I don't know. I'd say the people at my level and age that understood what any of that even meant was like 4 or 5 people.
Not me.
And so that is to say, like, it was a logical step for me to then build a configurator. Like, people say generative design, like it is, but it is a logical configurator that takes into account the needs of a real estate deal to be successful. And then we generate that. That idea was in my head because I was drawing these damn site plans every day with, trace paper and a flare tip pen, trying to update, as quickly as I could for the finance and construction teams, because we were trying to win deals. We were trying to close land so that we could then go do SDs and, go into DDs and CDs. So my whole professional experience really was geared towards site selection and getting a deal teed up for success. And today, I think that there's 8 Clifton harness design deals out there built, simply because I was the right company at the right time doing the right kind of work. And I don't know, I got burned out from the kind of drawing and counting everything manually, and connected with my now co-founders, a roommate in college, fellow Longhorn, Ryan Grieg, who's, he's 50% of the like, TestFit is a partnership between what is in my head and Ryan's ability to get it out, or at least it was for a few years. And he got it out. Like, he got it into a format that we could sell. And we've kept the price as low as we can because we want architects to continually, like, keep investing into the product. But the only way that we've been able to realistically get the funding and kind of the corporation that we need to build a better modeling and better design ecosystem for architecture, like, we have to go talk to construction and be invested there. And we are deeply invested in real estate development. Like, developers are about half of our customers. So yeah, that's, I don't know, it's logical for me, Jeff, is the answer.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So if I'm an architect that works on multifamily projects, just put it that simply,
Sure.
why do I need TestFit? Why do I want TestFit? And I guess, what problem does TestFit solve?
Yeah, you absolutely don't need it as an architect. Like, that's probably the hardest problem for many architects when contending with a product that does automation, is like, I could draw this on CAD. If you give me 6 hours, I can do it. Like, I don't need this thing that does this. But that's for the first iteration, and this work is for free. So, do you want the second iteration to cost you 4 hours? The second iteration TestFit costs you a button click, right? It's not very difficult, for me to update a unit mix to a later specification that got updated from a finance team, right? It takes a button click. And what TestFit does, like, it takes the concerns of the developer and it turns it into a very simple input. Like, this is the unit mix, this is what it needs to do. And it solves that, so the architect can focus on form making and place making. Like, architecture is the meaningful creation of space. It's not the beam counting, making sure that this deal is the right shape and form for a pro forma. Like, that's not architecture. And in my opinion, like architects are wasting their brains on solving a lot of the deal problem when they don't really respect the deal problem to begin with. And so we handle that.
So for people that are not familiar with TestFit, what is it? What does it do? How do they use it?
It's a co-creation tool that generates buildings. So if you had a piece of land, a real estate developer is trying to buy, our architecture customers will plug it in to our system. We'll decide what kind of parking it'll use. So it could be surface parking, structured parking, cast in place garage, lots of different options on parking because this is America. Like where 40% of the site planning problem is how you mitigate parking. And then there's a decision to be made about what kind of building is going to be on there. For the vast majority of our history, we've been really focused on housing, kind of culminating in becoming a generalized housing configurator. So high density has the most amount of variability. It's where we started. So your podiums and your wraps, wrap podium stack, lots of different ways of chopping up a building can be solved, just by placing a rectangular garage and seeing, okay, here's the resulting area that can be used for building, and a double-loaded corridor can fit here. And the designer can see the first option and they can explode it and start manipulating it into a different partee, and do it in real time. Like all the numbers update in real time. I mean, that was the thing that blew my mind, is like even once you get Revit up and running, you don't get your takeoff for free. You have to go figure out how to get your takeoff up and running. And as I was doing a lot of this in AutoCAD and SketchUp, quantity takeoff wasn't very easy there either. So TestFit, you make a building, quantity takeoff is exactly what outputs. Like the building is the quantity. So that's, I don't know, in a nutshell what it is. Lots of different building types now. Industrial is a new market for us. It was very hard to build an office tool during the pandemic. Very hard to grow in the hotel market as well. But we are seeing those markets heat up.
So I can start. I can look at a piece of land. Let's take it from the architect point of view. I guess I've got developer clients that are looking at a piece of land, and we're trying to figure out, as you said, we're trying to figure out how to make the deal work, which means, how many units can we get on here? What can we charge for the units? How does all this plug into our pro forma and then spit out, something on the other side that says, yes, this deal works or this deal doesn't work.
Right.
And
it's a very simple formula. It's a very simple formula. Like finance is rot and mystique, I think, because intentionally, I think they try to make it harder for people to understand. But like yield on cost is simple. A building in the United States needs to make at least 6.5% yield on cost, meaning that if it costs $100 in the first year, that building needs to make $6.50 for it to be for it to even be a building that could be viable. And the reason for that is that every piece of building or piece of land with a building on it has got debt applied to it. It's got equity applied to it. Buildings are incredibly expensive, right? Like it's not easy to fund the creation of a new building. So we try to do it intentionally.
So if you're using TestFit or a tool like TestFit as an architect, and we were talking about this the other day, so every week with Context and Clarity, we take what we're going to talk about on Thursday with our guests, and we come up with questions all week, and we have conversations related. And so Tuesday we said, what software are you using to be more profitable? And then yesterday we asked what software, or not what software, what technology, I guess. Yesterday, what technology are you using to serve your clients better? And then, of course, we're having this conversation today. And we got into a discussion the other day about what happens when we become more efficient because of software or technology. And what happens when a client says, oh, I see that you can do this faster, cheaper, whatever, then shouldn't your fee go down? But what you're talking about, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're talking about is the ability to bring more value as the architect, to bring more value into the equation, maybe simply by judging, maybe simply by, I guess it depends on who signed what, but if there's interest carry on the land already, you're certainly accelerating the timeline, which saves money, which is value. But it seems to me that tools like this allow us to bring more value in coming up with better solutions. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple things in how I think TestFit is impacting the macroeconomics of architecture. I think by bringing down the cost of getting initial iterations done, we're actually opening up the market for architects to start addressing the needs of brokers, like in a more effective way. So a broker, if they wanted to go get architectural design services in the past, would have to pay up front for a huge package, because an architect's not going to do design services on a project that is a vision. They don't want to do that. They want to earn the CD fees. So we're bringing down, I think, in a way, some of that overhead and the difficulty of addressing the broker market. So that's encouraging to me to see. It's kind of a new kind of market opening up. And then improving the assets. Like right now, TestFit, we operate in commodity markets, right? The reason why we operate in commodity markets is because they're easy to understand what it is that the whole group of people working on the building is optimizing for. If we were to go do a university building, I don't understand that market, because it's institution optimizing for 100-year hold. It's, how do you build something at scale to attack that market? For multifamily, it's pretty simple, right? We have such a housing gap in this country that the only way that we can solve it with capitalism, which is unfortunately the only way that our government or powers that be are giving us to solve this problem, we have to be more efficient with our time. And that means that we can only look at a certain amount of deals per year, and our hit rate on those is hopefully good. With TestFit, you're going to look at likely more buildings, more deals. You're going to have a lot more things to look at, because you're not spending like the principal and charges time on site plans. There's a terrible mismanagement, I think, of resources in firms, because that top dog person wants to spend their time site planning when they should be spending their time, doing strategic planning or building systems for the company. People wait their whole career to get to do site planning, right? And it's just, it kind of is an issue, I think, for small firms in general.
Where does the information come from? There's information that's necessary, right, to generate the design options, plus all of the the information that'll come back out for the performer. Where does all that information come from? Is it baked into the program, or how much do I have to put into it to get usable results out of it?
So it's 100% parametric, meaning that the information that you put into it directly affects the information that you get out of it. So if you give it a 10-foot wide corridor and 8-foot deep units, like the yield on cost is going to be terrible, and it's a building that won't work because it just won't. That is, say, like crap in, crap out. I think a lot of people say when they deal with software. Revit's no different. Many CAD systems are no different. If you don't manage the software well, it's not going to give you a good result. So I'd say TestFit likely, it's flexible enough that you could address most of IBC driven issues, which is International Building Code. When you start getting into Europe and Australia and some other countries, it's very difficult to translate. But there's a question about zoning code, I think, from Elizabeth. There's a lot of nuance in zoning code. We've built a lot of tools to help kind of manage that issue. Envelopes, like being able to model like a setback envelope is super annoying. We've made it rather simple to do. But at the same time, like we're not going to go figure out what LA zoning code is. Like I'm not an architect. TestFit's not an architect. I'm not going to take on that responsibility. Like you deal with your city, that is your responsibility, right? As much as I'd want to automate zoning reports, right? Like I still feel like the architect should take responsibility for the things that they're putting their name to. You can recount all the parking stalls you want in TestFit. We're going to count it for you, but you're still responsible for what it says. And it's no different than any of the language that Revit has in its terms and services. Like in the terms and services Revit, it's okay for them to not have the right number on the screen. Isn't that amazing? It just blows my mind. Like architects are still responsible. Like you are the bearer of this information, and it's on you.
Yeah, it seems to me, we've talked with Scott at Upcodes, and we get it.
He's a good egg, isn't he? Isn't he great? I love Upcodes. Oh, everything about him. I've had an Upcode subscription for a couple of years now.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
he's nice
he
guy.
is, and I think it's I think what he's working on, and also what you just said, and what you're working on, combined with other conversations. Anytime we talk about licensure or business entities or insurance, there's so much complexity, especially I'm going to say especially in the United States, because it's there's at least at a bare minimum there's 50 versions of everything, and then you have states that are doing things at local levels, like township levels and things like that. I think the complexity is just mind-boggling. It's hard to teach it, by the way. We were talking about this in one of my pro practice classes the other day. Well, what about this? It depends.
So every time jurisdictions, cities, and stuff, like whenever they start making more impossible to read regulations and possible to conform to regulations, they're essentially making it more difficult for housing to be built. But they're also creating opportunities for software like us to exist. Like it's so complicated to create a building because we have to be under this FAR, over this, under an FAR, under a lot coverage percentage. You can't touch any of the trees. You gotta have an open percentage on your balcony. Like there is so much math formulas that these city, like I almost want to. I wonder who's sitting in a room being like, oh, I guess like 20% open space is what we need here. Like, how do you decide that? Like, what quality of open space? Like, I've seen developers take a setback, shove it all the way in around the whole site to hit their 20%, lot coverage thing. It's outside the spirit of what the code's trying to say. The spirit of the code is make a courtyard that people can access. So I don't know. I think the cities are likely clueless when they write policy. It's well-informed policy, but when it comes to actually enacting it, like I feel like they could have a much better impact. And if they don't, you see what's happening in California. The state government is literally like, hey, the cities haven't solved this. All right, you don't get your zoning laws anymore. Like that's the most amazing thing to me is like if the cities don't get it in order, if they don't make it easier to make housing, what's the state government of Texas going to do? They're going to be way more angry than the California legislature. They're just going to eliminate all laws. Like they have it in Houston. They'll be like, you get Ted Cruz talking about, we have no zoning in Houston. We're fine, right? Like cities, like you got to get it in order. It's going to be a devastating world in 20 years. We have no housing.
Yeah, I get to sit on the outside and just talk about it. So good for me. But I think, so the thing that really fascinates me is, you've gone from your graduating from architecture school, working, identifying, I don't know if you say identifying a problem or because it saying identifying a problem seems a little bit small relative to what you're doing. But but I think the idea of solving problems through tech, and I know tech is scaring a lot of people, scaring a lot of architects. Well, if a developer has TestFit, do they need the architect anymore? So how do we flip that around? What does the value of an architect look like in the future with multiple platforms and products out there like TestFit and others that are available both to architects and to others? Is the tech enhancing the value of an architect somehow?
Oh,
Can
absolutely.
it?
Yeah, absolutely it is. I mean, just the amount of documentation, the amount of drawings that are done now is just so much more. I mean, the complexity of the buildings is so much more because the technology enables it. But I wouldn't be worried. Like it, I think the biggest superpower of an architect is to be able to walk into any kind of problem and create a vision for how to solve it. And if you can't do that as an architect, like I don't know, like you've kind of missed the point of what being an architect is. In a lot of ways, like the output of your profession is the built environment. So, uh, you know, I'm making it easier to count parking spaces, and I'm making it easier to document these buildings. Uh, our company, our corporation now, I'd say like it's now the corporation. Like we've raised $20 million to keep working on this problem. And I don't know. I'm sick of people being like, "Oh, TestFit's ruining our industry." It's bullshit. Like you want good software, you got to pay for it, and you want your clients to respect you. Get the best tools, get the best site planning tools that you can to inform them with how they should execute this $40 million debt and equity package that they're putting together. I mean, I think it's a lack of like impetus. Like architects are waiting for someone to come tell them what to do. Like you are the arbiters of the built environment. You have more power over the built environment than anyone else. You can go capture it. Like that's literally what I'm doing. I'm doing architecture at a very different scale, right? And if there's anyone in your pro prac class that wants to go change the industry, you literally can do it. All you got to do is wake up and do it every day and be told 92% of the time that you're wrong until you're right,
It's good practice.
I have a question for you. Do you see yourself doing another? Is this what you're going to do your whole life, do you think? Or are you planning on doing some other kind of technological advance that can
I will carry
be applied to
TestFit.
development?
I will carry TestFit Inc. to the very end of this road. I the more I invest in AEC, the more problems I uncover, the more opportunities there is to improve. But also the more talent that we have join the company, like just your eyes grow. Like we hired a VP of marketing from construction industry, and oh my gosh, just like hearing how some of the issues that they had been solving, and you're like, oh, like we could be helpful there and do this and this, and it just grows. Like I think there's a lack of impassioned people leading these startups or these AEC companies, or I can see it. Like you spend 30 years finally clawing your way into being a principal at like a three-letter acronym firm. Like you don't want things to change. Like you're happy because you took 30 years to get here. And that's unfortunate because things are going to have to change, because if you don't change this industry for the better, Gen Z is not going to want to be here. They don't want to be in AEC where you go through hell for your client and you don't even get compensated well for it, right? Like what is that all about? What are we telling the youth?
So I think that brings up a good point too. Before we went live, you said that, was it the right time for you to go from school to a couple of years of experience to starting TestFit. One of the things you said was you didn't really know any better. But I think about that, especially in light of what you just said. There have to be people that are listening in on this conversation right now, that are commenting right now from Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever they are, that have identified a problem. This is what we do. Class number 1 for my EntreArch Pro Practice class. You have to identify a problem, and then we set out through the semester building a business around solving that problem. But there are people that have been working for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or 2 years that say, hey, there's a problem here. Maybe it's in their accounting. Maybe it's in, their output, what it takes to get from Revit or whatever to, a 3D printed model. I don't know, just making stuff up. But is there a right or wrong time? I mean, you did it early, right? You identified a problem early in respect to your career. You did it early. If there's somebody that's 15 years in that said, here's a problem, what should they do about that? Should they find somebody that's in Jeff's pro practice class to take up the problem, or should they set about fixing the problem themselves, or developing a solution to the problem themselves?
I don't think everybody's like me. I'm an incredibly driven person. Like, as I've kind of gone through like kind of the hell that I did, during my working time, to like understand even like why buildings are the way that they are, which for me gave a lot of, I think, empathy for the developer, right, and empathy for the construction team. And so what I'd say is like it maybe isn't the right. It's not about the right time. It's about like, do you have the right empathy
Drive, yeah.
to step into the industry? Like, this isn't an easy industry to like step into and be like, I'm going to disrupt things. Like, it'll kill you, right? Like, just stomp you out. Like, I've seen lots of startups fail. But have the right empathy. Like, know what you know. Like, I know in my heart of hearts that architects and developers are better off working together on solving built environment problems. And that's why I will never automate away like architects being a part of our ecosystem. Like, I'm saying what I believe. The arbiters of the built environment. Like, I'm going to try to keep architects kind of at that center of the discussion. But I've also seen like real estate development companies have been acquiring architects left and right, like bringing that talent in house. And I saw it at Streetlights. Like, it was a very light kind of design, develop, build firm when I was there. Now they're doing full CD sets internally, because their architects were not responsive enough to their needs. Like, they are optimizing the internal rate of return and every piece of cash flow that comes in and out of a deal. And the physical shape of that building is the most powerful leverage against that budget. Like, it's so important. And we're micromanaging it, and it became so important to them that it needed to be even more control internally. So that's just one data point. I mean, these are all just like the big commodity powerhouse firms, though. Like, it's not like, I would say it's like if you had a normal distribution, I'm talking a very edge here. Like,
yeah,
not normal business practice, but it is inspiring to me. It's like, wow, I can't believe y'all are doing that.
Well, I think there's something really important there that you just said is, and you obviously have your niche, right? It's the multifamily, maybe it's the high density multifamily, but it's that, like you said, it's the design, build, develop world. So you have that niche. So there's that piece of it. But when you're talking about having the empathy, right, for what it takes to get it built and to develop it, I think ultimately that's the question, right? When we get into what's the value of an architect, and I tell, when I do courses and talk to architects and do my pro practice classes, I always say The architect has one job. That job is to make your client's life better. And I think without that empathy, without that understanding, it's really, really hard to talk about the value of an architect. What does that mean to a developer? What does that mean to, whatever somebody else's niche is? So I think what you said right there about the empathy for what it takes in that world to the other players at the table, that to me tells me everything I need to know, right? This tool in the hands of the architect, in the hands of whoever, is all about developing value for everybody. And the only way it can exist, from my point of view, looking at, outside looking in, the only way it can exist is by understanding how all of these things work together. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. If I can design a multifamily project for a developer, you've got two options. Here's this piece of crap, that's got all the parking spaces, all the requirements, and there's no space, there's no place, right? It's not something that anybody wants to be. There are people
Right.
that will live there, certainly. There's a price point for those units, certainly.
There's the best architects out there, in my opinion. They'll get several options and they'll guide the developer to the best design option.
Yeah.
And the good design, the good developers, honestly, will rely on what the architect's saying.
Yeah.
But I see a couple of issues. Like, if architects are the leaders of the, you got so many consultants. You got developer, GC, all the subs, the engineers, the interior design. Like, architect's supposed to be the quarterback, right? But why in every development thing that I've ever been a part of was it some analyst or MBA guy that was kind of leading the vision? Like, that felt weird to me. And I was like, I can do better for buildings than some finance guy. I'm going to go into development and kill it. Like, that was my thought.
Is it because of the disconnect, right? Is it because the architect didn't have the empathy to understand what,
probably different market sectors. I think
Yeah.
if it's like a library, the architect is God, right? If it's any civic deal, like, you need to have a design visionary running that thing, right? And if you don't, it's going to turn out to a piece of crap. It's going to be terrible. There's many sort of real estate driven master plans where they didn't have a visionary kind of designer lead the main planning effort. And like, it's leased, but at what cost,
Yeah.
And so I think in the long run, you get developers, that, like, we're starting to micromanage everything. Design's starting to become incredibly important. There's guys out there that are kind of preaching the gospel on the development side and how important, design actually is. But I think it's an opportunity for architects out there to go capture that leadership. It's not like, the firms that, like, if I were Gensler, I'd be worried about, like, some of the firms that are starting today, because they don't have any bad habits, right? They can go figure out an effective way to do a very specific niche and just kill it, and grow to massive size. And, that's when you can start developing great tools.
So on that front, what tools are out there that you see that excite you, or maybe that you can imagine are coming somewhere down the pipeline?
Ooh, it's a bleak world out there. I don't know. I think in AEC you have a lot of promising ideas that are coming to fruition, but none of them are sexy. And that's, I think people know a lot about TestFit because we're kind of sexy. You can kind of see it, and
It's the hat.
It's like things like value engineering, disruption. Like, the VE process. Nobody likes that. There's an incredible startup, join.build, that's been focusing on that, and, like, they can take $1 billion building and try to squeeze out like 200 million or something, and you're just like, wow, that's taxpayer money not spent on buildings. That's great. So I don't know, you can kind of see some, like, I would say process. Like, architecture is great at product. Like, nobody will ever complain about product. Well, I mean, some people will, but you can do really great buildings today with what you have right available to you today. Great product. Architecture, great product. Never had an issue with the people in architecture. I've had principals that would ride you really hard if you mess something up, and I really wasn't a fan of that. Kind of redline everything until you want to die. But people, for the most part, I think culturally, like every firm that I've ever been at had people that wanted to help the new guy, that was lifting people up. Right? Architecture is a culture that is from the studio. Everybody understands that it's hell. It's hard. It's inquisitive. It's like, very unique experience. We all have that unique camaraderie that doesn't really exist in many other fields. And then, so that's the people and the product. What architecture suffers with is the process. You got like half the art. You're going to get artists and scientists together. Okay, what's going to happen? You got to have a good process to manage, that. And so you spend a lot of time in college, maybe talking about process a little bit, but I mean, it's always in the context of design. I'm more interested in the process of getting the greatest, cleanest construction documents out the door as possible. Okay, what is that process? How do we optimize for that? TestFit, how do we optimize for, counting things, like tabulating things? It's a process tool, right? Very different approach. So if you can get software that works on process, I think that's kind of the next big thrust in AEC.
All right, that's interesting. I know we're right at the top of the hour, but I can't let this go without addressing at least part of Christian's question right there. He's are you familiar with the Munger Hall fiasco, the University of California, Santa Barbara?
Look, if architects don't become the arbiters of the built environment, do you want the chief risk guy at Berkshire Hathaway telling you how to make buildings? I mean, like, Jesus, like that. It's absurd to me that even got how big it was, that there wasn't an architect that could say, like, this is a bad idea. Like, who drew the damn thing? Like, I don't know. It's a terrible idea. Yeah, we could analyze it. We'd have less yield though, because it's literally a slum. Like, we're not going to do Munger Hall because it's a slum, right? Like, TestFit wouldn't generate that. It's a terrible building. There, I got off my podium.
Now we know Munger Hall is not a TestFit project.
Never.
Well, that's good to know. Actually, it's very good to know.
Yeah.
Clifton, I think we could continue this conversation forever. I think I appreciate you joining us. Lots to chew on here. Lots to explore. Where's the best place for people to find out about TestFit?
We have a website, testfit.io. It has forms that you can fill out. I think you fill out any form there, someone will call you or reach out to you. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I'm fairly open. Like, I genuinely care about architecture. Like, I'm trying to get that across as much as I can in this call or podcast. But yeah, like, the future is positive, guys. Like, I don't think that we have to worry about technology either. Like, I think it's promising to have good tools, and good tools hopefully will deliver better buildings.
Love it. Clifton, thanks a lot for this conversation. And to everybody else out there in our audience, thank you. Thanks for being here. I say this every week, just about. And if it weren't for you showing up and being a part of our community, we wouldn't have this opportunity to talk with Clifton today. So thank you for this opportunity. Katharine, as always, thanks for co-hosting this with me. We'll be back tomorrow, back to our context and clarity conversations tomorrow. The question tomorrow, and this came to me because I was thinking about the Jetsons. What technology do we not have that you wish we did, or maybe that you thought we would have by now. That's what we'll talk
This is
about
for tomorrow.
tomorrow. This is for
This is tomorrow. Well, that's
tomorrow.
I mean, that's kind of the $1 billion question, though, isn't it, Jeff? Because
Flying cars.
if we can think of things we need, we should do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it'll be a great way to wrap up our week of talking about technology and architecture. So join us tomorrow. We'll open up the Zoom room if you'd like to join us via Zoom, or if you can't or don't want to, you can participate through the comments just like you do every single day, and that will be great. Have a great conversation tomorrow. We'll be on Clubhouse tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Eastern, same bat time, same bat channel inside the EntreArchitect Community Facebook group tomorrow afternoon. Next week, our guests will be Trina Olson and Alfonso Wanker, the co-host of the Behave podcast. So I'll tell you more about that Saturday morning. I post every Saturday morning about next week, so look for that. But until then, again, thanks, Clifton. Thank you very much for this. I appreciate everything that you're doing there. And for all of you out there, please be safe. Take care of yourself. Be well. Keep those around you safe and well. Take a little bit of time to breathe, relax, find a way to rejuvenate. We do this every day. Got to pace yourself. Thanks for going along the ride with us, and we'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Thanks.